Shalom, and welcome to Hebrew Bible Secrets with your host, Rabbi Jerem Beaton. We are reading today from the book of Mark, starting at chapter 7. Mark, chapter 7, verse 1. 1. Then the Pharisees and certain of the scribes came together to him, which came from Jerusalem. 2. And when they saw some of his disciples eat lechem, bread, with defiled, that is to say, with unwashed hands, they found fault. 3. For the Pharisees and all the Yehudim, except they ritually wash their hands first, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. 4. And when they come from the market, except they ritually wash, they eat not. And many other things there are which they have received to hold, as the ritual washing of cups, and pots, and bronze vessels, and tables. 5. Then the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, Why do your disciples not do according to the tradition of the elders, but eat lechem, bread, with unwashed hands? 6. And he answered and said to them, Well has Yeshayahu, Isaiah, prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people respect me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. 7. And in vain do they pay homage to me, teaching the doctrines and commandments of men. 8. For laying aside the commandment of Elohim, you hold the tradition of men. 9. And he said to them, Neatly you reject the commandment of Elohim, that you may guard your own tradition. 10. For Musa, said, Respect your Av and your Em, mother, and whoso curses Av or Em, or mother, let him die. 11. But you said, If a man shall say to his Av, his father, or mother, It is Korban, that is to say, a gift by whatever you might profit by me, he shall be free. 12. And you permit him no more to do anything for his Av, his father, or his mother. 13. Making the word of Elohim of no effect through your tradition, which you have handed down, and many such like things you do. 14. And when he had called all the people to him, he said to them, Listen to me, every one of you, and understand. 15. There is nothing from outside a man that entering into him and can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. 16. If any man has ears to hear, let him hear. 17. And when he had left the crowd and entered the Beth, the house, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. 18. And he said to them, Are you also without understanding? Do you not understand that whatever thing from outside enters into the man, it cannot defile him? 19. Because it enters not into his heart, but into the stomach, and goes out into the intestines, purging all food. 20. And he said, That which comes out of the man, that defiles the man. 21. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, idolatries, whorings, murders. 22. Thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, stinginess, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. 23. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. 24. And he arose from there and went into the region of Sor, Tyre, and Sidon, and entered into a Beth, a house, and would have no man know it, but he could not escape being noticed. 25. For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean ruach, a spirit, a demon, heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. 26. The woman, was a Greek, a Syro-Phoenician by origin, and she begged him that he would cast forth the unclean ruach, spirit, demon, out of her daughter. 27. But Yahushua said to her, let the children first be filled, for it is not right to take the children's lechem, bread, and to cast it to the dogs. 28. And she answered and said to him, yes, Master, Adonai, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. 29. And he said to her, for this saying, go your way, the unclean ruach, spirit, demon, has gone out of your daughter. 30. And when she had come to her bed, her house, she found the unclean ruach, spirit, demon, gone out, and her daughter lay upon the bed. 31. And again, departing from the coasts of Sur, Tyre, and Sidon, he came to the Sea of Galilee, through the midst of the coasts of Decapolis. 32. And they bring to him one that was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech, and they beseech him to put his hand upon him. 33. And he took him aside from the multitude, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit, and touched his tongue. 34. And looking up to the Shamayim, he sighed, and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. 35. And straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spoke. 36. And he commanded them that they should tell no man, but the more he commanded them, so much more they proclaimed. 37. And were beyond measure astonished, saying, he has done all things well. He makes both the deaf to hear and the dumb to speak. So that there now ends chapter 7. So if we go back, we'll have a look at some of the footnotes in chapter 7. So let's have a look at the first footnote, which you have is in verse 3. For the Pharisees and all the Yehudim, except they ritually wash their hands first, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. Okay, let's have a look at this tradition of the elders. We have here, read Matthew 15 and 3. So let's have a look at Matthew 15 and 3. Matthew 15 and 3. And it reads, but he answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of Elohim by your tradition? So we have a footnote here for tradition, so let's have a look at that. So it says here, Yahushua does not criticize this tradition of washing of the hands, as it was common practice and agreed by the school of Hillel, but Yahushua talks about another tradition that would circumvent Yahweh's Torah. Note carefully, he says, your tradition, which means he did not agree with these, some of the Pharisees from the school of Shammai, but had no problem with the traditions of the elders established by Hillel and the sages, which were agreed upon. In fact, this verse is not talking about the washing of hands, which even Yahushua did and agreed with it. Christians should also wash their hands before they eat food. We know this is true when we have swine flu devastating the world, teaching us an important lesson that the traditions of our elders were correct. Even Muslims follow this tradition. Okay? So that's the first footnote. So let's go to the second footnote. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 4. And when they come from the market, except they ritually wash, they eat not. And many other things there are which they have received to hold, as the ritual washing of cups and pots, bronze vessels, and of tables. So we have a footnote for tables, so let's have a look at that. Okay, let's have a look at this footnote. This way of washing was established by Torah. Hence, there was nothing wrong with it. Yahushua at no time condemns any of the washing. He condemns the hypocrisy. Okay? So let's go to the next footnote, which we have in verse 6. He answered and said to them, well has Yeshayahu, Isaiah, prophesied of you, hypocrites, as it is written, his people respect me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. So let's have a look at this far from me. So we have Yeshayahu, Isaiah 29 and 13. So let's have a look at Isaiah 29 and 13. Okay, so Isaiah 29, 13. And it reads, therefore the King Yahweh said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, and their lips do respect me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the traditions of men. So we have a footnote here for traditions of men, which reads, Jerusalem was not paying attention to what Yahweh had to say, but had gone too much into traditions. Some traditions were good, while others of certain schools were not good. Okay, so that's the footnote there for verse 6. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 8. For laying aside the commandment of Elohim, you hold the tradition of men. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Early manuscripts miss the longer reading, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things you do. Okay. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 11. But you say, if a man shall say to his Av, his father, or mother, it is korban, that is to say, a gift. So let's have a look at this word korban. And it reads, we can see this word korban proves that the Gospels were written in Hebrew and not Aramaic, as this is a Hebrew word for sacrifice, or it literally means to draw near. The Hebrew oral law of the school of Hillel said that if a man had vowed a gift to Yahweh, then he could sell it and instead offer the money as support to his parents if they were desperate. This special law was made while the opposite side, some people, did not like this oral law and opposed it. Yahushua, showing that one can bend the laws of Torah where the respect of parents was considered a higher mitzvah, a higher deed. So see Numbers 30 and 2 on vows. And also the Talmud 9, 1 to 2, Rabbi Eliezer. They unloose a vow for a person by reference to the respect of his father or mother. They unloose a vow by reference to what happens unexpectedly. Okay, so let's have a look at Numbers 30 and 2. So Numbers 30 and 2 reads, if a man vow a vow to Yahweh, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. Okay, so we have a footnote for out of his mouth. All vows in Yahweh's name are binding and must be fulfilled. Okay, so if you are going to make a vow to Yahweh, make sure you fulfill that vow. Otherwise, you'll be in debt of £500 owing to the Levite Rabbi Simon Altaf. Okay, so make sure you make the vow and stick to the vow, or do not make a vow. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 15. There is nothing from outside a man that entering into him and can defile him, but things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. Okay, so we have a footnote for defile the man. Let's have a look at this. So Yahushua was not saying pork is now clean. He was talking about traditions that qualified different things to be clean and unclean. The Pharisees never qualified pigs as clean, or any other unclean food for that matter. Pigs remain off the Hebrew diet and are unclean and should remain off from our diets. On a funny note, pigs are quite grateful to the Hebrew and Muslim people for not eating them and remain eternally grateful. Let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 16. If any man has ears to hear, let him hear. Let's have a look at this. So we have, this verse is missing in Mark in the original copies of the manuscripts, but we have included it to avoid number shifting. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 19. Because it enters not into his heart, but into the stomach, and goes out into the intestines, purging all food. So let's have a look at this, purging all food. He is showing that generally acceptable kosher food, clean food, according to Torah, enters the mouth and leaves via the normal digestion cycle. He is not saying, reject all of the Torah and now go and eat unclean foods, like pigs and crabs. Unfortunately, those unlearned in the nations have done exactly that under the guise of favour. So this is where a lot of people go wrong with this verse, because they believe that, what goes into the mouth doesn't defile. But don't forget, the people were eating actually clean foods at that time. So no matter what went in, wouldn't defile anyway, because it's all clean food. They weren't eating pork, they weren't eating crab and shrimp, they were eating, clean food. But whereas many people think that now we can eat what we want, the pigs, the crabs, the prawns, the lobsters, all shellfish, and Yeshua's not saying that. He's actually telling you, those things are still off the menu. So be warned. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 23. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. So let's have a look at this. He shows that common kashrut food does not defile a man, but unclean thoughts and actions of the heart can make one unclean. Even if you are stingy and do not give for the kingdom of Yahweh, that will defile you. So this is what defiles you, what comes out of your heart. All those things that Yahushua was talking about, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, stinginess, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. These are the things that defile you because they come from your heart. So this is what it says, what comes out of your heart defiles you, not what goes into your mouth. Talking about clean foods, obviously. It's what's in your heart that defiles you. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 28. And she answered and said to him, Yes, Master, Adonai, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. So let's have a look at this. Eat of the children's crumbs. The bread is the idiomatic reference to the Torah of Moses. But she was happy to have the crumbs of Torah. But the children of Israel were disobedient unto the fullness of Torah. So, she was happy with just taking what she could get. Whereas, B'nai Israel, a lot of them are not interested in Torah. They're just not interested in returning back to the commandments. So this is what we're talking about here. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 34. And looking up to the Shamayim, he sighed and said to him, Ephatha. So let's have a look at this word, Ephatha. So we have, even though the word here is in Aramaic, It does not mean that the gospel was written in Aramaic original, because the Hebrew people mixed Aramaic words into Hebrew speech, like the word bar mitzvah. The word bar is Aramaic, but the word mitzvah is Hebrew. The two words means son of the commandment. Many Pakistanis living abroad, though being from the East, also mix English and Urdu. This is because of living in the West and acquiring Western practices. Indian-speaking Urdu populations mix Hindi and Urdu the same way. Okay, so that brings us now to the end of chapter 7, and I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the other side. This is Rabbi Jerem saying thank you for watching, and shalom shalom.